Good evening, everyone. My name is Cameron Cowan. This is the Cameron Journal podcast, and we are doing a special live event this evening on Thursday, October 2nd. In just 6 days, a new anthology by Something or Other Publishing, which I have ever so carefully and lovingly shepherded through this whole process for I think at least 14 months that I can think of, possibly a little bit farther back, will finally be arriving and coming out in its full form. It is very much down to the wire. We approved the interior typesetting text last week, and we approved the back cover this morning. So we're running right down to the wire of production. But the wonderful thing is that it's everything set up. The books, the books will go out. And this evening, we have a very special thing because we're bringing to you a couple of the authors in the curator from the collection. So in a moment, I will be joined by John MacArthur, who's one of the authors in the collection. And if you give me a moment, I'll even tell you what he wrote, because I have it right here. And if I were really on top of things, I would have already had this handy. But he wrote a story called Dreamland. We're also joined by Jamey O'Donnell, who, again, if I'd done my homework, I would have this in advance, who wrote Second Chance. And we're going to talk about the collection. We're going to learn more about the authors. We're going to learn about the stories they wrote. And just be very, kind of excited and enjoy our company for a little bit as we talk about fantasy, sci-fi, why people write, how this collection came together, all this sort of thing. This is a big moment for us as a company. As many of you may know, we've recently transitioned from just being another book publisher to being a full-on media company. This is the first anthology we've produced under my leadership, and I've been here for 2.5 years. And this is our first time working with Maryann DiEdwardo, who I was so lucky to meet as one of our contest judges for our short story contest last year. And she has been with me part and parcel through this all along the way. And obviously, it's really exciting to get to meet some of the people behind the anthology. Before I go on, I want to let everybody know that if you watch this video, either you're watching it now live or you watch us later, if you're watching this later on, because it will be reposted, the anthology collection is live and available at soopllc.com. We still have our pre-order sales rate with a discount up right now, and you can order it there. And obviously, it'll be everywhere books are sold next week. And due to our distribution through Ingram, you can obviously always ask for it at your local bookstore. And if you're ordering at your local bookstore, ask them to carry a couple, because this is a wonderful and amazing sort of collection. I want to say, first of all, that science fiction and fantasy are both genres that are very anthology collection driven. Many a sci-fi career has been launched because of a science fiction anthology. We're going to get into why we merged these two together, how this all came together, all this type of thing. I could talk about it a lot, but instead of just telling you the whole story myself, I'm going to get some help. So, hang on one moment while we change some things around and get the room ready, sort of thing. Here we go. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to bring in John MacArthur, who's here, and we're going to display your name so people know who you are. Then we're going to bring in Maryann DiEdwardo, our curator, and let me put up your name so people know who you are. And then, last and certainly not least, we're going to bring in Jamey O'Donnell, your guest 3, remove from group, there we go. And we're going to put you up there. There you are. And yeah, so this is, I was struggling with how I was going to fit us all on one screen, and I thought this was the best way to do it. So here we are. Let me make sure everybody's kind of straight and symmetrical here. And Maryann a little bit bigger, John a little bit bigger. Here we go. All right, that looks better now. Welcome, everyone. To our little discussion on Meet the Authors of Fantastic Worlds. So I want to start off immediately by having everyone knows who I am and they're not interested. So let's find out who you are, where they will be interested, and let's go around and let's introduce yourself, your work, what you've written, all this type of thing. And Jamey, we'll start with you.
Yeah, hey, it's really good to be on with you tonight. I'm very excited about the release of Fantastic Worlds. I started writing back during the pandemic, had a lot of time on my hands, and as a lot of us did, being locked down. And so I began writing my first book, which is Hunting for the Lamb of God. It was awarded a Kirkus Star, and it has done pretty well. Everything I do is self-published. I'm not with any publishing company. This will be the first, my first collaboration with another publishing company, and so I'm very excited about that. I've written several books. I've written Hunting for the Lamb of God, which is post-apocalyptic. Then there's a sequel, Living for the Lamb of God, and I've also written a couple other books, Mess War, Lost in Felony Flats, and then my latest release is a book called Epiphany. I don't know what else I can tell you, except that I live alone with my 2 cats. I have a cat named Godus and a cat named Polly, and I absolutely love them. They are awesome cats. Matter of fact, they may make an appearance here on the screen because they're roaming around. They like to get up in my business when I'm doing stuff like this. That's basically it. I love to write, and my routine is usually I get up about 3-4 o'clock in the morning and have a cigarette and a cup of coffee out on my patio, even in the wintertime when it's freezing. I live here in Denver, Colorado, so you can imagine how cold it gets. But that's what I do. I'll sit down at the computer, I'll write a sentence, maybe even a paragraph, and begin writing, and I'll hopefully finish up by noon that day. My goal is to write a chapter a day, because for me it feels like a book within itself. And so my average writing time for a book that's anywhere from 275 to 320 pages is usually about 3 weeks, and that's not including editing. But So there you have it. That's me.
Awesome. I grew up. I went to high school in Denver. I actually the heat went out in my car 4 cars ago. I was driving a '96 Astro van. And I did a Denver winter with no heat in the car, and I just kind of wore a heavier. I just put on a sweater and a better coat, and kind of went from there. So yeah, it is. It is quite cold. Although not as crazy as the time I was in Canada and it was -29. Negative
Oh,
29 is a whole other. That's a whole other world.
no,
But
I was raised in Chicago. I was raised in Chicago, and you try to
yeah.
explain to people what 50 below feels like with the wind chill coming off the lake. You have to experience it. You can't describe that to anybody. So yeah, in comparison, Denver is could be a lot worse.
Indeed, indeed. John, let's bounce to you.
Okay, well, I've been writing. Loved writing ever since I was a kid. As a matter of fact, when I was just maybe a teenager, I got my mom's old typewriter and would spend hours down in my room just writing stories, writing anything. Um, and I wanted to be in creative writing. I took a creative writing major at Miami of Ohio University. Unfortunately, my high school wasn't big on teaching us the basics, and so I really did not know what a verb was, which is a problem if you're going to be a writer. So I redid my whole life plan from there. But since then, I've written several things, mostly articles and publications. Um, I have a book out. It's a biography of James Garfield, basically focusing on his religious faith as president his whole life. And also I have a devotional book from the book of Daniel as well. I'm currently working on several things. I want to put together a book about all the presidents and their religious faith. It's an interesting subject for me to see how the variety we've had over the years. And then also I'm writing another biography on Edward Baker. You may not know who that was, but that's arguably Abraham Lincoln's closest friend. He named his one son after him, as a matter of fact, Edward Baker. Um, and so I'm working on that. And no biography has been written on him since about 1960. So it's about time for another one, I think. And then I'm also working on a memoir with my first wife and our 4 adopted kids. It was a long 6-year journey with a lot of things going on. Most of the things you wouldn't believe, and Hollywood would say, no, that's too fantastic. You can't have that. But it happened, and I'm trying to write that down, and other things as well that I'm writing on right now too.
Excellent.
The interesting thing about my short story in Fantastic Worlds, Dreamland, um, my wife at the time, she was my girlfriend. We were sitting around talking about dreams, and she said, "Wouldn't it be nice if we could program our own dreams?" And I thought, "Oh, that's a good idea," and that's the whole story that I wrote. So I give her the credit for that. At the time, she was just my girlfriend. Now she's my wife, and so we're happy, and uh, she inspired me onto that.
Awesome, awesome. We'll dig into that a little bit more. Maryann, our curator and fearless leader, let tell us a little about yourself and your work, which is a lot. It's a lot. Maryann is the most employed writer in America. So let's tell us, introduce yourself to us.
Well, I wanted to thank you for allowing us to come on this show. It's definitely my favorite news hour this season of discontent. And I am the author of more than 50 books and articles on the international market. In this one, Spatializing Social Justice, Bloomberg picked it up. I am really arguing that literacy is a lifelong intellectual process, gaining meaning from critical interpretation of written or printed text. But these literary critiques took years to accomplish, and I'm touching upon different kinds of writing to explore the healing process through words. So the other, I think, highlight for me is a film credit. My memoir was made into a documentary. It's about the legacy of Katharine Hepburn. Bertrand Tessier came over to Manhattan and met me there, and I did a 52-minute documentary about mythical couples in Hollywood. And I was really grateful for that. Talked to him about this fine art as a way of life, which is my paradigm. I'm just grateful to be with all of you. I also was a childhood writer. My sister says that when we wrote plays together when she was like 3, she still remembers learning to read from those plays. So I'm a playwright, poet, fiction author, nonfiction author. But this was really a great service for me, and I'm grateful that I get to work with the 3 of you. Especially, these stories mean so much to me, and they're so deeply written with so many criteria that we always need in the quality of stories. So that's me.
Wonderful. I'm no, sorry. Someone I need to talk to is calling in, and I can't talk to them right now. We'll send them away for a while. Excellent. Well, that's wonderful, amazing, talented people. So I want to dive right in with learning a little bit about the stories, and I'm going to start with some of the wonderful ones of the people that are not here. There's some really great, excellent pieces in there. Maryann and I definitely, like Unfair Parents, definitely picked our favorites. I was always drawn to Dreamland. I was always drawn to Second Chance. In fact, I believe it's pretty early in the collection because we liked those from the start, and so those sort of things. So we just put those right at the top. But there are some other gems in the collection along the way, including Ladislau, which is really amazing and a lot of fun. The Second Spin also stood out as well. There are just so many fun, and I think the one thing I love about this is we have lots of short things, and we also have very long things, including a novel excerpt from Todd Embry, which was a kind of an alien abduction sort of thing, but that was really, really exciting, but was very long. It started out at 20,000. I asked for 10. Maryann came back with 15. We published 13. So that was a journey. We had to go on a whole journey with Todd on that. And also had to kind of have a conversation about his pre-orders. If I'm going to publish 13,000 words, you better hawk some books. So that's and he did, which was really awesome. And so that was a lot really good. But I want to dive into your guys, since we have you here so conveniently. We're going to talk about your stories. So I'm going to start with you, Jamey. Why don't you tell us a little about your story in Fantastic Worlds and where you got the inspiration for it?
So basically, this story attempts to answer the age-old question: is there life after death? And what happens is Dr. Phillips, who is a research scientist with Mindspeak Laboratories, they invent a drug. They created an experimental drug to bring the clinically dead back to life. And he has also brought in a religious studies professor named Dr. Malou from Denver University, and they bring him in on a spiritual aspect. And so the way that they test this drug is they start to search throughout the Colorado penal system looking for someone who would volunteer. Now, as far as volunteering, they would have to volunteer to be either suffocated or drowned. Other aspects, other ways of death would not be acceptable. There are parameters, obviously, to how this drug would work. And they cannot find anybody within the Colorado penal system, so they start to look nationally, and they find a gentleman by the name of Gerald Bostwick. He's doing 25 to life for vehicular manslaughter. He killed a family while he was drunk, cruised over into their lane, hit him head on, and he got the least of it, and he ended up going to prison. So he was in prison for a couple years already, and he was being raped continually and had a very bad time of it. So he was willing to take the chance, and there was a big reward for him if they survived. And so he's their subject. He's their test subject, and And that's basically it. If I tell you any more, I'll tell you the whole story, and I don't want to do that.
No, but that's an excellent setup. Where'd you get the idea for it?
Well, I get a lot of crazy ideas. The things that just kind of run through my head. Matter of fact, I'm getting ready to publish my own book of short stories. I have about 35 to 40 of them that I've written. So, and you know what gave me the inspiration to do this was SOOp, because I kept entering all those contests. I hadn't really considered myself a writer of short stories, but I kept entering all these contests, and so I would keep writing the stories, and pretty soon I had a whole bunch of them stacked up. So I figured, I've got my own book here. And so my next book I'm going to be releasing, I've even called it Campfire Stories for Adults. And it'll be a collection of my own short stories.
No, I one of the more fun projects I ever had a chance to do. I did what they call an anthology of myself, and it was my own short story collection. It has 14 stories. It's called an unfinished coloring book. And it has everyone's favorite story in that book is called The Ticket. It's about a man who works at the port of Seattle, and he finds out he has a $50,000 winning lottery ticket in the seat of his truck, but it expires today, and he doesn't have enough gas to get all the way down to Olympia, which is about 100 miles, to cash in the ticket at the lottery office. So he decides to take the train, and hilarity and chaos ensues. He meets a girl along the way as the train gets stuck and all this type of thing. And as my editor said, I immediately flip to the end to find out if he gets the money. Yes, he does. I'll spoil it for you. Yes, he does get the ticket turned in on time. Yes, he does win the money. But that's everyone's favorite story. But there's other ones in there, like Windswept Waste, which is about the Rocky Flats fire in 1969 in Colorado. All sorts of other ones, including one of the very first short stories I ever wrote called The Diner, about a diner that's getting closed down because the interstate's getting widened. So I encourage that, Jamey, because it's a wonderful, amazing process. And I would have to say, of all the things I published, Unfinished Coloring Book is probably more favorite of mine than my novel. The other fun thing about that book that is very funny is I had gotten one of the stories in it, and I forget which one now because it was 5 years ago, published in March of 2020. The day that book was released was on March 13th when lockdown started. As I call it, the worst book release date in history except for 9/11 and December 7th, 1941. Of dates in the last 100 years not to release a book. December 7th, 1941, September the 11th, 2001, and March 13th, 2020 are in the top 5 days to not release something. So, needless to say, that book never got the attention I was hoping it would, but it is one of my favorites. And yes, and if anyone ever wants to read that, CameronJournal.com. But excellent. Well, John, enough about me and more about you. Tell us about your story. You told us a little bit about how it inspired you, but tell us a little about the story and what happens, and we'll go from there.
Well, like Jamey, I was always more of a full-length novel and book type person, but I never thought about short stories much. But when I saw the ad for the for SOOp's short story contest, I said, why not? That's after my wife had encouraged me gave me the inspiration rather to write the story, and I had, and so I submitted it. I like research. I like really getting involved in it, and for instance, when I was a kid growing up, the book I was writing, I never did get published. It's laying somewhere. I had over 200 pages hand typed. I called it 6 Men in Memphis, 1861. It's about these guys that happened to be in Memphis, Tennessee when the Civil War broke out, and how they had different ideas and different thoughts and how they approached that. But with this short story, like I said, I've never really written a short story before, but I found I really enjoyed that because you can really tie it in tighter, and you can really get it down. There's the story itself. Dreamland is a company that produces an app called Dreamland, and with the promise that you can program your dreams. And when you get the app, you are then asked to buy a chip called Dream Maker, which you put on your forehead when you go to sleep, and you program into it first. There's a device that goes with it, and you program what you want to dream. The dream app comes with over 1,000 titles of different scenarios you can have. Even if you're over 18, even more of an adult theme thing if you really want. But there's something for everybody. But once you get to using it for a while, you find you can also program your own dreams. You can maybe start with the scenarios already set up and then kind of go off on your own tangent. And the story centers around Joseph and Catherine, a couple that get this dream thing, and they enjoy it. And they decided one day they wanted to try it so they could both have the same dream. And the first time they did it, they just did it on their own. They're going to go on a trip to Hawaii rather, and drive cross country to get there, to come from the East Coast to the West Coast and fly to Hawaii. And they laughed because their dreams were a little bit different. And what they saw in it was that basically their own fears and personalities came out. It's what they liked and what they didn't like. But big trouble was they couldn't do it together. And so Catherine was talking to her coworker Linda about that, who also had the app, and she said, well, her and her husband, what they do is you one person wears both apps, and you lay real close together, and you can kind of dream together. And so they do that with kind of mixed results. But as they go on, things keep getting worse. So some weird things start happening. Some things just kind of appear, and there's a group called Nightmare that wants to destroy this whole company of Dreamland, and so they put a virus into the chip, and so some really bad things start happening to people. People start dying, as a matter of fact, but the worse than that, well, that's bad enough, obviously in itself. But they also the economy kind of collapses in the country because everyone's using the Dreamland app, and they're not going to work. They're too tired in the morning. They're too sleepy, and they want to do that more than anything else. And so all different things in the economy begins to fall. Movies and TVs and all the media businesses kind of collapse because no one's using them anymore. They don't need to do that because they can have their own movies in their own head. And so anyway, they without giving the ending away, like Jamey, I basically Joseph and Catherine try a dream together, and some bad things start happening. And there's an abort button on there that was really a nasty thing to put on there. And when they abort it, one of them can't survive, and so they have to figure out what to do with that. And so I'll leave it at that. And the ending, the story does end in a certain way.
No, no, that's very good. That's absolutely perfect. Maryann, I wanted to kind of talk with you a little bit, because you don't have a story in this collection, but I'm kind of like, what am I going to ask Maryann? But I am going to ask about the process of going through this and reading all of this and working with authors, and because you were very front line on all of that, as I was handling all the back end company production stuff. Yeah, walk us through what the last 14-15 months of doing this collection has been like for you.
Well, I keep a journal on everything that I do. I think that's how I write every day. So I have it all in front of me like a large poster. And to extrapolate the science that these folks have done is extraordinary to me. So May 23rd was the actual date last year that I started. And I had to develop a criterion list. This list had to do with critical review. Was it original? Was the structure intent upon a purpose? And I noticed that the two authors that we have present here, John with Dreamland and Jamey, Second Chance, you're very strong writers in this field. And the substance, the meaning that was there, like a sentence like when Jamey tells us that Dr. Milieu's quote, from Second Chance, from Jamey, when he says Dr. Milieu's interest was from a biblical and spiritual perspective, he wanted evidence of life after death in the spiritual sense. In other words, he wanted proof of heaven and hell. That paragraph comes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs written in perfect short story language, but delivering to me what I'm looking for, which is something called phenomenology. And if you look at the phenomenon of the depth of Jamey's story, it's very it's signification, it's semiotics, and it has so many things that deal with the kind of theory that I write about. My newest book coming out, Phenomenology, Hermeneutics, and Metacognition, Approaches to Resistance Writing. It is being published in Britain. This is what I'm thinking about now. And when we saw the way that John, his story, Dreamland, deals with what we live with every day. Like isn't there a day when you wake up and you go, what does that dream mean? And I know so many people who keep dream journals, and I don't know about you, but I've had some dreams that are repetitive or that stay with me. Like I'm almost afraid to go to sleep because I might see that fire in my mother's old house in Hazleton, Pennsylvania, which is a coal region area, which was a very difficult place for them to grow up. So this story was not only human, but extremely beautiful. And then I made a list of all the stories that are going in the book, and I was trying to think of how many other stories I've read. And I probably read hundreds when we were looking at the short story contest, because I was judging it for a while. So I have a record I was going through that tonight before to explain what I did. And I spent the whole summer reading, because I didn't only read it once. I read it at least 5 times so that I could feel what the world was. Was there a megaverse created? And there were 2 significant stories that had megaverses, which would be Chronosphere and Confluence, where we're actually going, different worlds are coming in, and then worlds are named, like Galactic Alliance in Confluence. And in Chronosphere, we have the time continuum and the megaverse. So
one might even think those worlds would be fantastic.
Yes. What a title.
Thank goodness I thought of it. Like
it really changed me, because I love to read, but reading something that is fresh, and then I got to talk to each author, and so many of one of the shorter stories, the author said to me, is it too short? And she said she thought it was powerful and it was just enough. And I said, I think it is. So I went a lot with what their initial gift is, which is what I always teach all my writers, that your initial gift is what you should, as you might agree with in writing, you need to focus on what you can do and believe in yourself, and I believe the quality of the stories is remarkably high. So then once we started talking, we had some meetings together like this, and we actually started it as a collection. What are we going to do with it? And being able to share it with science fiction libraries, that's what I really am working on now. Getting letters, going to visit science fiction collections, just like at the Syracuse University Library has a huge collection. So that's where I'm going with this. But I've kept journals to write how I feel on days that I'm reading or writing. Some of my journals have lists of science fiction lists, like Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, Night of the Living Dead, other works like I Am Legend. And these are strong works where I would try to read a great book, then I would come to the stories so that I didn't lose my sensitivity or my zest. And I have a lot of conversations with my family. Today I was actually on a 5-mile hike to discuss it with my 40-year-old son, just to make sure I was working with language that would be pop culture, but is also for somebody like me, a scholar. And we talked about, he said, what is your favorite? And he thought you would like to hear this. When Star Wars came out in the 70s, no one I knew liked it. I was in theater arts. I was studying in New York City. No one in Northeast liked Star Wars. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it was not accepted at the time. And now with Andor and the way that the producers and the directors are working on art mirroring life and life mirroring art, in that context, Star Wars has become a great part of, I think, many people agree that it's great. And my final word is, at the very, very end, I'm thinking about you asked, what my favorite film be, and it's going to be Interstellar, because gravity transcends time. And there are complexities in our stories like that. Both of you do that. Jamey, you overlap, metaethics, which I'm also writing on, teaching peace and metaethics, and you're overlapping on ethics. And I think what John is doing is taking the internal mechanism of the human mind and questioning it. And I think it's brilliant. I think you really are. So that's who I am, and these journals will always be with me. And I thank you very much for the chance to help you.
No, thank you. I appreciate that that breakdown. It's been a lot. There were definitely people, not that people would know this or you guys know this, but we started out with a list of 200 people to get 35. And in the SOOp model, that obviously includes bringing in your pre-orders or buying out your collection, which was, its own journey for some people, and with lots of help and marketing support, and so many emails, too many emails were sent out to existing SOOp readers to move copies for this collection. And everyone in the collection did an amazing job. We're launching this collection with almost the 500 copies to trigger the first royalty, which is amazing. And obviously, we're still at that last mad dash. And I also know that, once it comes out, there'll be some new sales from there as well. So I'm definitely excited to keep the train going on all of that. And this is part of our marketing and promotion efforts for Fantastic Worlds, and there's more happening as we get into the launch day next week. As I said in the intro, we approved the back cover this morning, so that's all off to Ingram for approval and typesetting. Also, I know that she was unable to come this evening because she's getting ready to leave for 3 weeks in Europe, but our editor, Beth Rule, edited the collection and worked with everybody on editing their story and getting it ready to go. That was a lot of fun. I don't know if Jamey or John, you had to talk with Miss Rule very much in the editorial process, but I know some writers had to do a lot of back and forth with her on that. So she was also an integral part of the team that brought all this together. So these are not easy to put together. It's not easy to write the stories. It's not easy to wait around for them to be reviewed in a contest or part of a collection. And also, I also really want to thank Maryann for sticking with us, but also thank the authors, especially Jamey and John. You guys have been so patient with us. I sent out my first email asking for interest, I think, last June. It's the October following, and this book is finally coming out. You guys have just been so nice to just ride with us and stick with me as I sometimes frantically send out updates where I'm kind of like, hey everyone, sorry I haven't caught up in a while. Here's a list of 6 things that have been going on. Talk soon, sort of thing. But just thank you guys for sticking with us through this whole project,
well,
and I'm really excited.
You kept us in the loop the whole way. It was easy to be patient with the process because we were kept in the process along the way. This is my first experience in this, doing a collaborative effort, and So for me, I mean, the work that you guys did, and especially, like I said, with the emails, keeping us in the loop, it really, really helped. It really helped. And so it was very easy to be patient with you.
Yeah, I
No,
agree.
thank you.
100%. Yeah.
No, thank you. I did try to keep up the line of communication. I don't know if you guys ever went to either one of the town halls that we had last fall at the list collection. I said at the town hall, I said I want to begin how we mean to continue. And that means, keeping up the lines of communication. And when people would email in, I would endeavor to reply to them almost instantly, no longer than 24 hours, so people know we're still here, we're still working away. Putting a book together is not a fast process, especially when a good portion of it is waiting for people to get in their pre-orders, seeing who's going to find, of the people we want to, can we put in the collection sort of thing. That was, and then also picking a story order. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. The trailer that we put out, that was a whole thing that had to be made. The cover had to, the graphics were made a while ago. Marketing has been, this has been the subject of every book production meeting and most marketing meetings for all of this year. Was all kind of getting ready for this moment. And I always feel this when I see a book roll off our production dashboard. We released a book by Dr. James Augsbury called About Not Losing earlier this year, about a medical malpractice trial. And that book was 13 months with us. And I was the developmental editor for it. And I remember the first meeting that wasn't on the schedule. I heard a ping in my heart. And I got to get ready for this next week, because after the 8th, it's not going to be in book production meeting anymore. It is off to marketing, which I'll still be involved in. The first 90 days are very important. There's still lots to do in those 90 days to market the book, but we won't be talking about what typesetting we should do. Has it gone to layout? Is this that it's going to roll off the dashboard? And this has been such a big part of my life for the last 15, 16 months. It's going to be weird for it to be on sale and the subject of marketing meetings and not production meetings, and Maryann and I won't have a reason to talk anymore. It's it's going to be an interesting change. I
do want to say the cover is fantastic.
Thank you.
Who designed the cover?
That's Veronica in graphics. I didn't even really write a creative brief for this cover. I just said, here's the title. It's science fiction and fantasy. Do something with that. And she came back with, this was the first draft. And I said, yep, that's it. Like that was very easy. Like, yep, that's it. Yeah, yes. And I was really excited when we did the trailer that we played at the top of the show, people were very excited. A lot of people in the collection were very happy about that. It got shared a lot. I shared it a lot. Maryann shared it a lot. Other people in our ecosystem shared it. I remember the first time I played it for some buddies of mine, they're like, yeah, that's better than anything at EDC, this big gaming convention. This is better than a video game trailer, sort of thing. So, it was, Veronica did a great job.
The cover is going to jump. I can see this on a bookshelf. It's going to just grab somebody's attention immediately.
Yes. And no, that's the hope. And I think the other thing I like about it is there's a lot of colors, and that you haven't seen this yet, but I was looking at the template this morning. That foresty scene wraps around the spine and onto the back cover where your guys' names are, says authors at the top, everybody's there, there's a little blurb at the top and everything. And so, I think it will stand out on a bookshelf. I love, if you're scrolling on Amazon, you're going to stop at this one. Like you're going to, stop on by. So we did an excellent job on that as well. And it's just, this has just been a huge part of the life of and so many conversations and many emails, and it'll be a little weird to not have it in 6 weeks as a part of that aspect of the life, but it'll also, that will be replaced by the fact that it will be out into the world. Books will be ordered, pre-orders will go out, people will write reviews, and hopefully the collection will go even, farther, bigger, grander than we ever hoped. So, we're at about 7:45, and I aimed for this to be about an hour. Thank you, everyone who stopped by the live. We had a group of about 8 watching us. It's been up to a dozen, down to 8. People come and go. But I want to thank everyone for watching. But I want to start kind of doing final thoughts so we can be out of here by 8 o'clock because, people get antsy. We live in a short attention span society. So let's do a round of final thoughts on you, yourself, your writing, the collection, what this whole process has meant, and then I'll kind of wrap us up with some final housekeeping, and we'll get you on your way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and begin.
Please do.
What I want to be sure to get out there is my website. I encourage people to go to my website. My website is www.jameyo'donnell.com. That's JameyO'Donnell.com. No apostrophe. Go to my website. You'll be able to see interviews I've done. You'll be able to read a plethora of reviews on all my books. You'll be able to read my story. I've got a pretty interesting story, my life, and so check that out. I just want to thank everyone involved. Maryann, thank you. Cameron, thank you. John, great to meet you.
You too,
someday we'll throw back a shot together. Who knows?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
That would be awesome. Just very, very glad and proud to be part of this, and I just wish everybody involved future success.
Thank you. John, final thoughts?
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. My day job is a pastor, and I've been there for 48 years. I write my sermons out manuscript style, and I figured it out a couple weeks ago that if you put all my sermons together, that equals roughly the average about 93 books. And now I'm finally getting one published. So, I mean, this is not a sermon, obviously, but it's nice to have that. My other books are self-published as well. It's nice to have a book with a publisher company that's taking care of all that stuff for us and doing all this. I'm looking forward to it. I'm really excited by that, by it coming out next week.
Yeah, yes.
And again, it's nice meeting all of you too.
Yeah, no, thank you. And John, we should talk about maybe having you on Created in the Image of God with our founder, Wade Franson. There could be an interesting conversation there. Maryann, final thoughts before I do housekeeping and get us out of here?
Sure. I just have a whole lot of research that I'm going to be doing on topics searching for post-humanity and pandemic elements in my own writing, and how to understand biological warfare, genetic modifications, cyborgs. This week in my class at Lehigh University, we're actually teaching graduate students from all over the world to write and understand writing on robots taking over jobs. That's what we're doing this week, and we're designing those robots. So it's not stopping, gentlemen. We are in it, and we should just keep writing and keep thinking about. I'm speaking at Open Simulator community conferences in virtual reality spaces on justice literacy critiques and cultural landscape, and how how protagonists are taking action, how we're claiming our own agency, and how writers need to be writing. We need to get, all of us need to get out there telling our own chronicles. So I think you have given us the fire of it's actually a myth. It's a mystic development, and I was thinking about this is in meta-ethics terms, that in all stories we start with Aristotle, and Aristotle says art is imitation. So what's old becomes new again. The timeless themes that make perennial sellers are still in use today. And we love adventure, we love redemption, romance, and self-help, utopia, dystopia, megaverse, techniques to share your stories and explaining our experiences, and that's what we need to do before we leave, right?
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's very exciting. Maryann's doing a conference in March. I'm very excited to be speaking at that. That's going to be interesting. which it seems like a long way away. It's 6 months, so we're gonna have to talk more, Marianne, about what exactly I'm gonna be speaking on. But it'll be good. But I want to thank everyone for coming by this evening to our little Meet the Authors segment here on the Cameron Journal. If you are interested in getting your own copy of Fantastic Worlds, it's so easy. You're gonna head over here to SOOpLC.com. And from the front page, you'll come right here and you'll be able to buy on the pre-order offer, which is still available until the book comes out. I also want to let everyone know that you can follow SOOp on all your favorite social media, which are conveniently linked at the top. And if you want to hear more from me and my work, you can visit me at CameronJournal.com. Where I do have fiction, including my slightly neglected serial, The Department Store. There's one of the stories from my short story collection, Windswept Waste, that is publicly available if you really want to read about 1960s nuclear manufacturing and what can go wrong. And we just want to thank everybody for coming by this evening. Please make sure to like and subscribe, follow these guys, keep an eye out for the collection. Ask for it at your local bookshop. If you want to get announcements like these and other things from SOOp delivered directly to you, please do not hesitate to follow us on Substack, SOOpLC.substack.com. And I also especially want to plug a new project we have. We'll have a picture of Paris for a moment. A new project we have called SOOp Literary. It is replacing our old short story contest that we have let go, and now we're taking literary submissions via the anthology program and publishing them on Substack. There's kind of a bit of a hubbub in the writing world right now if we can make Substack work for fiction, and I think we can. So I launched SOOp Literary a couple weeks ago. We haven't talked about it a ton, but this is an opportunity for me to remind everyone that we now have our own in-house literary journal, and we are taking submissions through the anthology program. So you can also head over to our website and check that out. That will be very exciting as we move forward. Our first story we published was really awesome. It was from a guy, D. Dean. So I can't remember his last name. It was D. Dean something or other. And it was called The Planet of Little Red Hearts. And it is a heart jerker. Absolutely. The title says what's in the tin. So head over to our Substack, SOOpLC.substack.com. Make sure to subscribe, click on SOOp Literary, and you can find out what happens on the Planet of Little Red Hearts. So thank you so much, Jamey. Thank you, John. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you to the viewers for coming by tonight. And Fantastic Worlds, October 8th. It's out and available. So thank you all so much for coming by this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, good night, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for coming.
You too.